and kicking off the stream on, so we'll be live on Reformed and Recovered, and then Sean's going to pass that around.
All right. What's up, everyone?
We're just confirming that we are live. All right.
Okay. All right.
I believe we are officially live. The last time me and Sean streamed together, we had some live stream shenanigans. So we're just double checking to make sure that everything's copacetic on the live stream today. And this afternoon, we're doing a special edition of Reformed and Recovered and in Christ Recovery and Apologetics. And we are joined live by, by Samuel M. Frost.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? And we'll be doing a little discussion about recovery today. Sam's going to get a little into his background. He's also written a book on kind of the theology or the spirituality of Alcoholics Anonymous, specifically AA's big book. Go into that a little bit, and then also talk, maybe talk about some future plans and some ministry stuff that he's got going on. But yeah, we're very, very pleased to have Sam on with us today. And as always, to be streaming with my buddy Sean Gregory over there, my partner in crime, brother for the Lord. And we just, want to jump into this and celebrate the Lord, celebrate recovery, and just relish in the fact that there's 3 guys on here that used to kill themselves with substances, and we're alive on here talking about recovery and giving glory to God. I can't think of anything better to do on a Saturday afternoon than to do that. So yeah, Sam, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the show. This is the first time we've done this. We've known each other for a couple of years.
Yeah.
They're off of Facebook.
Yep.
One of the good reasons for Facebook.
Yeah. And then you build relationships with people like me and Sean. We do stuff we've never met. He lives in Alabama. I'm in Texas. It's strictly I'll even make jokes. I'm like, Sean, sometimes I think you're catfishing me, bro. Maybe you're not really who you say you are.
I think my membership on Facebook, like a year after they launched, and we were in chat. You had chat rooms before that, like Cow Talk and this other bunch of stuff. And then you heard this vacuum sound carry over to Facebook. And then when we got there, I was like, this is it. This is where it's at. I've always been pro those things. I know that there is abuse. I know that people post where their warts are located and that kind of stuff. I just don't think that's all. I don't do that. And I have found that these tools, I've met scholars and academians that I never would have ever met or had the opportunity, and people like you, I never would have met. And then, in fostering those relationships, even though we haven't seen each other, physically face to face, but this is the next best thing.
Yeah.
You can't beat face to face, but this is, the next best thing of being able to meet people. And I think it's a very positive thing. I know it gets abused, but I like Facebook. I always have.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of bad stuff about it, and I do realize it gets abused. I've seen it. But it's the world.
Yeah.
Like if you read the Bible, it's like, well, that's Facebook. What do you expect? It's the world. Everyone's not going to be on their best behavior any more than they are in the world.
Yeah. No, I know, because I've definitely met people that can kind of have more like a, kind of like a Luddite attitude when it comes to technology and all that stuff. But there's a few people that I know on Facebook that even through COVID-19, it's like just through using Facebook, YouTube, it's like so many doors have opened up during this pandemic for recovery stuff, for ministry. People kind of coming together, and we can't meet in person, so we can meet on Facebook and make new connections and all that kind of stuff. So I think
I don't have a doubt that the Apostle Paul would be using this kind of technology.
yeah.
I don't have a doubt in my mind. I think that, you know, where he's firing off, and Luke, bring Timothy with you, and Luke alone's with me. So Timothy, you need to come up here, and I'm sending Tychicus over here to Ephesus. Here he could just talk to Tychicus and say, hey, I need you guys to do here, and then come up here to Rome when you're done and bring the manuscripts. You know?
Yeah. Well, I always think about when he's talking about all the stuff he's been through, and he's like, he's basically floating in the ocean for 2 or 3 days straight. You know? Internet, that wouldn't have happened.
Boy, what a life! What a life he lived. Here's a guy that could have had a great career as a Pharisee, living an elite life,
right?
Of you know, somewhat wealth, what would have been regarded as wealth in the first century. He could have had all of that, and he gave all that up, every bit of that. So, travel in a boat that's breaking apart in prison and beaten and flogged, he gave up. You know, boy, he gave up all that to live the life that he did. And as intelligent as he was, bilingual, you know, he was very well educated in Tarsus, and he gave all that up. And that's an example, you know, for us. So don't get me started on Paul. So.
Yeah, right.
I love Paul.
I mean, I just Philippians 3, that's like probably one of the most important passages in the Bible for me. But like you're saying, in all that stuff, he considers all that garbage. Uses actually very strong words there too when he's talking about that. But this is all trash. This is refuse compared to the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord.
The height of Solomon, the greatest luxury that you could think of, the wealth, you know, that apex of King Solomon there in the kingdom of Israel, and the height of everything that was meant to be, is nothing compared to the new heavens and new earth and what God has prepared. It's not, you can't even compare it. That's what Paul's saying. There's no comparison to it. And you know, we think that, oh, we've got all this success and luxury and we own all this stuff. It's nothing. It's not saying it's not important now, but it's just temporary. It's not eternal. You know?
I think about another one too. This kind of, you know, I've always taken this in connection with recovery and addiction and all that, but Psalm 4, when I think David wrote Psalm 4, but when he says, you know, you have filled my heart with more joy than when their wine and grain abounds. I always take that as a cross reference for what Paul is talking about right there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, well, I guess it'd be interesting to know, because I do know, but the audience, you know, your definition of alcohol, you know, there's a lot of definitions of alcoholism.
Sure.
I always like Father Brown's, those old chalk talks he gave. He said, well, if alcohol is creating problems, if your drinking is creating problems in your family, your finances, your home, your job, then you have a drinking problem.
Yeah.
It's that real practical advice. And that's, I say that because in reading the big book of AA, the Alcoholics Anonymous, they call it a phenomenon, and I don't think that it's really moved beyond that definition. It's like there's alcohol abuse. There's people that are stupid and they drink too much and they do stupid things and they may get a DUI or something, and then they may do it a few more times. But as they grow older, they tend to balance it out, this, that, the other. But Silkworth goes into this, and the literature I read today, the clinical literature I read today, it's amazing how they're still saying kind of the same thing he said back then. But you have this phenomena. You've got this certain group of people. We can't quite explain it. We can describe it. Is that it seems like, it appears that you've got this group of people that when they drink, it's just not normal. There's something there that does something to them than the guy who's just an idiot and drank too much and got into a fight. These guys are different. Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
there's
Sure.
something else going on there.
Sure.
And looking back, as we were talking before the show, having many years of sobriety and then being able to look back on and seeing where I'm at now and where I was then, it's like, yeah, there was something else. Now, for the Christian, I would say demonic. There were spirits and demonic and principalities and powers and stuff going on. Sin in me was consuming. So that's how I've been approaching it. Looking back on it, because I'm just not, people who knew me then and see me now, they're like, you're not even the same guy. Well, I am the same guy.
Yeah.
I just don't have 2 gallons of wild Irish rose.
Mhm.
So it's a difference. So looking back on it, yeah, maybe it was 2 different guys, but then again, through understanding what sanctification is and God brings, we're in a process here. And maybe I have changed. Does that make sense? Where you don't want to get puffed up in yourself.
Yeah.
Sin seizes that opportunity too, where you really think you're doing great. Sin can take anything.
Yeah.
And mess it up.
Yeah.
Even your progress in the Lord and your humility and all of that stuff. That the Spirit of God is working in us. Humility, He's working in us a broken, contrite heart.
Yeah.
That's what we want is
Yeah.
brokenness and contriteness. But you can even get lifted up in that. So, like what was the Mac Davis song? It's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's stuff that we talk about and we talk about in recovery all the time. Powerlessness, the humility. We are powerless over people, places, things. Those are the cliches that kind of get passed around in the meetings a lot. And I believe that 100%. I believe that 100%. Because the more, it's like the more I realize that and try to wrap my life around that right there, it's like the more I'm relying on God and my recovery is that much safer. Because when it's in my hands, it ain't that good. I'm not that good at recovery. All the stuff that I do, I'm not that good at it. So It's got to come from a power outside of myself. But I don't know if you're familiar with the book by Ernest Kurtz, Not God. Yeah,
I've had the chance of talking before, of emailing at University of Michigan. Ernest Kurtz, yes, great
book.
Recommend the book to everybody. Yes.
Yeah, and which I think is one of the few books that was actually kind of, I don't know if it was sponsored by AA, but it was approved by AA. I think he got full access to everything that he wanted. But just that title right there, Not God. We're admitting I am not God. You know what I mean? God is God. I am not. Therefore, I'm going to trust myself to this, this great God and manage my life because I cannot manage myself. And there's actually an old prayer from Frank Buckman from the Oxford group. And I know I'm kind of hopping around here, but just, playing on this idea of humility and all that. And he's talking to this young boy, Victor. He's over in the Himalayas and he's in an orphanage and he's harassing the sisters running the orphanage. And Frank Buckman's like, Victor, you know what can change your life? Christ can change your life. He can make you, and Victor's like, well, what do I do? How do I become a Christian? How do I have God change my life? And Frank says, well, just, surrender as much of yourself to as much as you understand to God, right? Make a beginning with God. That's kind of AA literature. And then he has them pray this prayer which says, Lord, manage me for I cannot manage myself.
Yeah. I tell people I didn't quit drinking. This time around, I didn't quit drinking. It's just the desire was removed. The years before that, though, you go through this struggle. Those stages there that they outlined, those are pretty well accepted. That book by Ernst Kurtz, that not God, that's a great theological concept too. I've actually brought that into the issues dealing with sovereignty of God, and I always, if God knows all things, He determines all things. Yeah, I said, well, yeah, He does. I'm not God. I don't know what He's determined for tomorrow, so I think that's a wonderful thing, that not God. You're not God. I don't know what determined all things.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do in the next 15 minutes. So I'm not God. It's not my place to think about that kind of things, other than knowing He knows from beginning to end. And I find comfort in that. But I think sometimes with Reformed folks, they can get into these intricacies of things, and you get into these Molinism and all this bunch of stuff. And it's like, this is where I love Calvin. Calvin just didn't go that far. He said, we can only go, our knowledge is limited. We can only go so far. I can't give you an explanation for why it was, I had, degrees and working and believing in God and pastoring a church and all, and then I'm struggling with alcohol. I can't give you, I'm not God. I don't know why I had these issues and struggles that I did, or particularly, I can theorize about it. My dad drank, my brothers, my grandfather drank. We talked about this. We grow up with this, this idea that drinking is the social elixir that it is, and it makes things a little easier and makes your communication with other people a little easier. And if you're introverted like I am, it brings out the extroverted kind of stuff. It's a wonderful thing if you can handle that. And people have asked if I'm a teetotaler, and I said, no, if you want to have a few glasses of wine, knock yourself out. I'm not against any of that. Be careful, of course, around other people that you're at. That's the thing. I get a little upset with some of the Reformed folks that tend to, like, I've seen pictures of pastors and stuff, and they got a big bottle of whiskey in front of them, and they're like celebrating that they could drink. That bothers me. That might be a good topic. Because I went through that with pastors when I was really struggling, and there would be they would be drinking in front of me, and knowing my history and things like that. And then, of course, hey, have a couple, and then I would end up drinking, and then just set it all off again. And that was in a Christian context. I was in a Christian fellowship, and this was happening. And that's a problem. I might have opened a can of worms there. I didn't.
No. I mean, no. It's a very real topic. No, and yeah, I don't want to name names, but no, there are some Reformed pastors that are, kind of like you or me might be on it. Okay, have a glass of wine. It's, no big deal. But then you do get some Reformed guys posting the pictures with the cigars, reading Charles Spurgeon, drinking a glass of bourbon, or which I'm all about liberty, but I'm also wondering about, like, the whole Romans 14. Are we causing our brothers, to stumble by glorifying this kind of stuff?
Right.
I was just fixing to go to Romans 14. I was just fixing to go to Romans 14 because you see, I mean, we as Christians, we have brothers and sisters that struggle. I mean, that's why, like, let's say at the church that we have you won't see someone else drinking or using a substance in front of someone else because they don't want to cause someone to stumble, and I think that's the greater sin, is that, hey, me, if I was not an addict, or I didn't struggle with substance abuse, and I'm drinking alcohol in front of someone that has struggled with it, what message are you sending, brothers and sisters? What message are you actually sending to that other brother and sister in Christ, when you're basically saying, hey, this is okay? Because, in all actuality, let's look at the prison population. 85% of the people that are in prison which it could be, other charges, but the main thing was drugs and alcohol that got them
yeah.
into prison. So, I mean, you have a lot of people especially in the US, that struggle with this certain type of problem, this certain type of issue. So let's be sensitive to the other people, I think that we need to gird ourselves and gird our brothers and sisters, because we need to not only be accountable for ourselves,
Yeah.
we need to be representing God in a certain way, but we need to be accountable to our brothers and sisters so that they don't stumble. And I'm off my soapbox now. Thank you.
Well, no, you're bringing up good stuff there too, though, Sean, because I think, Sam, now, are you a part-time chaplain?
No, I'm a certified chaplain here with the Henry County Sheriff's Department. I go out on runs and with the deputies and stuff like that. A couple in particular. A lot of them don't want to have anything to do with it, which is fine.
Yeah.
They need me. I'm here. Yeah, drinking and drugs. That's the biggest. Domestics.
Yeah.
They're drinking. Husband and wife are drinking, fighting. It's always drinking. It's drinking. It's boy. What you just said there. It's different because I can be around it now, and it's there's no pole there, or so
Yeah.
it's I have guests over, whatever. But at the time, and now pastorally looking at that, to be sensitive to those types of things, I don't do it, because this is as pointed out, this is a massive community problem that destroys families, and I don't want, even if I had the luxury of doing that, I wouldn't do it, because it's such a massive problem. Why would you even want to be associated with something like that? And that's just something I urge pastors and people like that, to you don't need that. Stay away from it.
Yeah.
So I think that's Romans 14. I think that's exactly what that's cry. Give that up.
Yeah.
But to sit there and, hey, I got a new, check out this new bottle of 32-year-old scotch. And I look at that now and I'm like, what is this what you're selling? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What message are you sending here? Because
Right.
that message was sent to me when I was going through those types of things, trying to control my drinking. And all that message did to me back in that time was embolden me to say to those that were concerned in my life and my family, of saying, see, they do it, and so I can do it too.
Yeah.
That's all you're telling me.
Yeah.
And that's just, you're playing with fire there.
Yep.
And I don't like fire. I'm no big
Yeah.
fan of fire.
No, it is definitely a difficult, it's a difficult subject, but I've had conversations with people in the church, and almost saying things like, well, Christ can teach you how to control your alcoholism, or Christ can, and I'm like, what is the point of that right there? My walk with God it won't be benefited if I had a drink with my buddies on Friday night, not one bit. I'm fine in my total abstinence. It's the only way that I live. I don't want to try to live another way. So I don't see why God would do that, because I don't see how casual drinking can benefit my life, at all. And that's not to say that, hey, you have occasional drink with your buddies, dude, go for it. You do you.
Right.
But like you're saying, that has no attraction to me at this point. My entire life is built on my recovery, my marriage, my career, my children were all born in sobriety. Like, it has no appeal to me whatsoever. And it can't benefit me in any of those areas. Having a drink, it ain't going to make me a better dad. You know what I mean? Having a drink is not going to make me a better husband. And it's not going to draw me closer to God. I don't see how it could draw me closer to God. So those are, really kind of how I answer those. kind of statement.
It's a prayer, it's what you pray, God remove the desire. So if that's the prayer, and if that prayer, by his grace, if that prayer is actually answered, or the actual desire is removed.
Yeah.
People have said, do you think you could have it? I said, well, like communion, there's wine, but that's a different mental concept. I don't have the desire to have a casual glass of wine. I probably could, but I don't have the desire.
Yeah.
It's not gonna, I don't, see any benefit of me saying, hey, look at what I have. But yet on the same time, I don't, I'm not a Baptist, so I'm not one of these abstinence, prohibitionist kind of people either.
Right.
So it doesn't bother me. I guess it's the content. It's just that someone orders a glass of wine, we're at dinner or something, somebody orders. It doesn't bother me in any way, shape, or form. It's that promoting of it. Look at what I got. Look at what I got. That's the difference. It's just an attitude there that I don't like.
Yeah. I mean, oh gosh, I was reading one book, and I'm not going to mention the author, but basically saying, and I don't know why they were getting into it, but talking about churches that use like grape juice, or they'll offer grape juice in the communion, and they're doing that for people, they're alternatives for whatever reason.
That's fine.
And this is an author that I really respect. He said, if you're not using alcoholic wine, you don't really believe in the spread of the gospel. And I was like, weird. Why say stuff like that?
That's just where we lose our minds there.
Yeah.
Grape juice, I have, it says, well, I'm a text-driven guy. It says wine, but does that mean that wine is commanded?
Right.
No. To use wine, yes. If you can use wine, use wine. Is it commanded? No, it's not commanded.
Yeah.
Grape juice is just fine.
This
is where we take things out of the Bible and we make commands out of them. There's not commands there.
Yeah. I think it's kind of, it's like the teetotalism. Well, the Bible, people will claim, the Bible outlaws any lawful drinking. Well, no, the Bible's not. The Bible's saying, do not be drunk with wine. Do not be overcome with sin. Be sober minded. It definitely doesn't say total abstinence for everybody. But I also don't see it saying, no, alcohol for everybody, drink, moderate drinking for everybody. So I think we can kind of run to these two extremes, and they could be, I don't like to throw around the legalism word, but it could be legalism definitely on, on both sides of the spectrum for sure.
I'm glad you just brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up because, you do have those two extremes where, basically, kind of like you said, the Baptists, the prohibitionists, right? That says, hey, you can't drink any type of liquor or wine. That goes against the grain of the Bible, guys. Look at the Psalms, and you see that it's a merriment type of thing. But then you have the other side of the spectrum where, the person indulges with the drinking, right? And I think that this ministry here, Reformed and Recovered and in Christ Recovery and Apologetics, wants to show people that you can be abstinent within recovery. You don't have to partake, not that, hey, I'm going to learn how to control it. You could just say, hey, I'm not going to partake, and I think that glorifies God just as much as if God gave you the ability to control your drinking. But like Rory was saying, and like you were saying, Sam, what benefit is it? What benefit is it to even risk it to where you go back out there? Because, I'll say this, we see it a lot at our recovery church. People will go out there and sometimes they don't come back. So that's the thing, is that just giving hope in the midst of this situation and saying, hey, there is a joyful abundant life, in Christ, where you don't have to use substances as possible.
Well, it gets what we opened up with. It gets back to that phenomenon that there's just some people, like my sister, may she rest in peace, but she would have a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine, and then she didn't go into her having glasses of wine and thinking, I'm gonna have 2 glasses. Normal drinkers don't do this. I'm gonna have just 2. It's they they've had enough. They've had 2 and they've had enough. That's it. They're not thinking about it like. So if you're going into it thinking I'm just gonna have 2, then you got a problem already. as far as I'm, you're trying to control something. Because normal people that have a glass of wine or whatever, they're not controlling their drinking. They're having a glass of wine and enjoying it. They don't think about it. It's my stepfather would do this. He would have a beer at dinner. I remember as a kid going out, he'd have a beer at dinner, and then he would have a cup of coffee when dinner was done, and then go home, or we'd go to a movie, and then that would be the end of that. It wasn't ever brought up.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a problem. But if you're trying to, well, I'm just gonna have 3. Well, I can remember back in that didn't make any. 3 bottles. The idea of having 2 glasses of wine, that's alcohol abuse. Like two glasses, that's it. Can you bring the 2 or 3 bottles of wine, the gallon bottle? And that's where people they didn't understand. It's like, haven't you had enough? And it's like, no, I had enough. I'm just, well, we've already went through a bottle of wine. Haven't you had enough? I'm just getting started. What are you talking about? But for normal people, that's like, that's enough. I mean, that's, I remember going out with people that didn't have problems, and they would have, 2 beers or whatever. I'm, working on my 9th. And just, how that's what that phenomenon we opened up with. It does. And I think there is a spiritual aspect there. I think that there's a sin, I look at sin as a principality or a power. Ed Welch, I think, gets into this in his Banquet book. There's a power of sin that manifests itself in some sexual sins. I never struggled with pornography. I've always hated pornography. And then when you have daughters, forget it.
Sure.
That was always just, and then other things that works, but alcohol, boy, that was my.
Yeah.
So sins manifest themselves in different ways in different people's lives. But if you read the guys that struggle with lust or pornography and all that kind of stuff, it's you can hear yourself in it. It's like, that's the same. You feel overwhelmed you can't say no to this desire. I always likened it to, I'm aging myself, but I love cartoons. Saturday morning cartoons. My sister and I would look forward to Saturday morning cartoons, and they would always have, like on Bugs Bunny and stuff, the lady that would put the pie out on the windowsill and have these fumes going up. And then Daffy Duck would smell the fumes, and then he would get lifted up off the ground and then just float to the pie, And I said, that's the desire that comes to people like me. It's an overwhelming. It comes from the outside, and you get goosebumps, and you're in AA. The saying is, you're drunk before you even take the first drink, because you're already there.
Yeah.
When you say that, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and it might be hours before you get off work or whatever, but you've already clicked. It's a done deal, and it's an overwhelming thing. And I never could say no to that. That's the powerless part. I thought, boy, that plays right into Romans 7. That plays right into Paul. That's sin. That's what Paul is talking about. So this is a spiritual problem. It's an overwhelming problem. I remember, and you guys probably too, when you're either struggle. I struggled for years to try to control or quit. Nightmarish. Only to say I'm going to have a beer and then you're shutting the bar down again at 2 a.m. and wondering how did I get here? And then doing that 50 times, 75 times. You're just like, you're the mental crushing of the guilt of letting people down again, times 100 again. And that mental crush when you can't, you excel in other areas like studying in theology, straight A student, knowledge that was always easy. It was whatever other things I could do and do them well and disciplined at it. I practiced like drumming or something like that, so I could sit for hours and do my rudiments and got really mastered it. But I can't quit drinking. Yeah. I can't have 2 beers and stop. That's a mind crushing kind of thing. And then you know God, so you're praying, you're asking God, take away this thought. Why am I going through this? Why don't you take this away? Why is everything, and all of your problems are related to your drinking. So any problems that you have or run-ins with the law or whatever. My brother and I, he's drinks, but we would cut up being together, but we would always, any problems or troubles or run-ins or whatever you would have, you could always preface your story with, well, we had been drinking at the time.
Yeah. I have a brother like that too.
Well, we've been drinking at the time. Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And it was that all my problems were related to this simple thing. You can't have 2 beers. You have to have 19.
Yeah.
Boy. And it's simple, right? It's simple, but it's not for us.
No.
That's whatever we are, but does that make sense? What I say is just,
Yeah.
There's a phenomena there that some of us just, when we drink, it's boy. Yeah. It takes us to places that it doesn't take you.
Yeah, here, let me, because you had kind of asked earlier, like, kind of talking about like a definition of alcoholism or, kind of my stance on it. And, I don't know, my stance over the years, it's changed. I've been around I've been doing this for, over a decade now, but there's a passage in the Bible that probably explains my view on alcoholism and alcohol abuse more than anything else. So somebody asked me, hey, what is your definition of alcoholism? I'll point them back to this passage, and this is Proverbs 23.
Oh yeah.
Me, and I'll read it. But for me, it's not a matter of the chicken or the egg. Is it a physical illness? Is it a mental illness? Is it, or like the Ed Welsh's or the Jeff Durbin's? Well, it's idolatry. Well, I think it's idolatry. It has physical implications. I think we tend to run to these 2 sides again, to these extremes, and we want to shoehorn it over there. When I think again, because I'm a text guy, right? I want to do a Bible-based recovery. And so I always go back to this passage right here, but just look about everything that you're talking about right here. Solomon talks about this in Proverbs 23. And I know you reference it in your book for sure. Who has anguish? Who has sorrow? Who's always fighting? You know what I mean? Who's always complaining? Who has unnecessary bruises? Who has bloodshot eyes? You know what I mean? So anguish, sorrow, that's the mental aspects of alcoholism and addiction right there. It's the one who spends long hours in the taverns trying out new drinks. Now, this is the New Living Translation, so not my favorite translation, but it's the one who spends long hours in the tavern. trying out new drinks. Don't gaze at the wine, seeing how red it is, how it sparkles in the cup, how smoothly it goes down. For in the end, it bites like a poisonous snake. It stings like a viper. You will see hallucinations and you will say crazy things. You will stagger like a sailor tossed at sea, clinging to a swaying mast. And you will say, they hit me, but I didn't feel it. I didn't even know it when they beat me up. When will I wake up so I can have another drink? You know what I mean?
Been there, done that, right there. That's
Go hair of the dog.
Yeah, hair of the dog. So, I mean, through all that, consequences, negative, mental, physical, social, it covers everything in that passage. And still in the end, yeah, when will I wake up and when will I have another drink? So
Let me ask you this, because of Proverbs, and I love that. In the text there, the Hebrew, in 30, I think, where it says, give strong drink to those that
Yes.
are perishing. The connection there is, in your mind, you're perishing.
yeah,
It's just not worth going on. I have nothing to live. Give strong drink, and this is like that. It is saying that, give strong drink to those that are perishing.
yeah,
If in your mind you're perishing, there's nothing really to, what else do I got to live for? This is the one thing that takes it all away for at least a couple of hours. Living in my broke down shack, and I don't have any money, and my kids I haven't talked to in years, and this, that. See, you're perishing. The link there is that's an escape that does that. But in both of those verses, most of those passages, you're the contrast is wisdom and obedience, and obeying the Lord, and having the Lord submission, and all of that kind of stuff. But it's a mental, which to me is spiritual. See, that's a spiritual one.
so yeah,
When
so
can I
there's a
wake
book,
up and go to another drink? Like you've surrendered, you're done. Your life is finished.
yeah. So there's this pretty popular book, The Heart of Addiction, a biblical perspective, by a guy named Mark. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Mark E. Shaw. I don't know much about the guy's background, but it's a pretty popular book. It gets recommended a lot. And he has a chapter on that called The Perishing Mentality, dealing with that chapter in Proverbs 30. Because I think it is a passage that can get mishandled quite a bit.
Certainly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that perishing, that's
there's some drinkers that drank alone. I had a tendency to drink alone because I could get off into my own thing. You have a party going on in your own head.
Yeah.
And everything around you is just falling apart. But then for that few hours, you're able to escape. And there is an escape. Again, the scriptures make you confront the reality.
Yeah.
And addiction is a thing where you want to escape reality. You're wanting to get away from it and feel some sort of pleasure, at least for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Momentary pleasures of sin.
Yeah.
I've placed big emphasis on that. People say, why did you drink? Why did you do that? Why do people that do meth, which is an issue here in Newcastle, why do they do that? I just don't understand. One person, I said, well, that's because you never did it. It's there's a euphoria that goes on there that it's and it allows this escape. It brings this sense of pleasure. And I said, if you're living in a culture of pleasure where you can't watch any movie or magazine or anything about play, it's all about pleasure.
Yeah.
Feeling good about ourselves, feeling good about those around us, feeling good about our life, feeling good, happiness, being happy, and here comes this thing that makes you happy, at least again for a couple of hours. But in the end, it bites like, you're out there looking for more. You're out there trying to get more, and your life's falling apart. The very thing that is making you unhappy is the very thing that makes you happy for a couple of hours. That's the crazy deception about the whole thing. which again gets back to we're dealing with principalities and powers of sin here. And that's ultimately the thing for me that, like I said, I didn't quit drinking. The desire was removed.
Mm.
It was a very strange thing. And, a particular incident happened, and yet found myself again and in a situation. And then the month went by, and so I went to a counselor, and then I noticed the desire wasn't coming back. And I thought, well, I've been in trouble before, so everything will get straightened out, and I'll be right back at it again. And then 2 months. So I'm talking to my counselor, who's a wonderful Christian man. I said, it's been 2 months. Wow, that's good. Well, here's the thing. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, because things are, getting reconciled, and you mess things up, and then you get things fixed again, and then you're right back at it. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then here comes the desire. And then so 3 months, and I remember getting really worried, because I was thinking, it's going to happen. So Ben, my counsel friend, he said, just go with it. He said, he goes, you don't have any desire. You don't. I said, no. I said, it's quite amazing. Now, in and around this time, my dad, with his cirrhosis, and this was alcohol related acute. This was acute related alcohol related cirrhosis. The rest of his body was great. Very healthy family genes that we came from. So this is just, and I wouldn't wish cirrhosis on anybody. It's horrible. So my sister and I are watching him, and 4 months, 5 months. And I'm, telling my fiance, who's now my wife, I'm telling her, I'm like, I'm getting really scared, because, I've never gone 5 months without drinking. This is crazy. And I know the feeling, I know the desire, I know the thoughts, after these many years, you identify, when you see it coming, it's here it comes. And I know I'm going to succumb to it. I know I'm going to say yes. That's the fear. And so, it was 6 months, the first 6 months of sobriety, and then my dad, he passed away, and I have to not tear up. So ministering around in his bedroom there, and praying with him, and watching this take place. And he was sober, and I said that to him. I said, Dad, you are sober. Go home and be with the Lord, because he had faith, I believe. And it was he grabbed because now we're doing the hospice thing. My sister and I are with nursing care, so they're coming in all the time and monitoring us, and we're keeping him home. So we're doing the hospice aspect and filling all that out. And he grabbed my hand, and he said, I hear your prayers, because he would be in and out. So he would come, he said, I hear your prayers. Keep praying for me. I said, you are sober. And I'm, and I'm sober, and you're going to be home with the Lord sober. And I knew, because that chain broke. It goes real deep back in our family. And I've got 2 boys that are in their 20s that have never had any issues with this. And I said, the chain's broke. It's the chain is broken. The Lord was just showing me there that this is your life. This is where you're going. This is where you're going to end up. And I knew right then and there, I was like, but see, that it's tough with AA, because you go into AA and it's about technique and method and going to meetings and all that. And I did all that stuff. I really tried with all my heart to do all that stuff. It just didn't take. This was a work of the Lord. This was, something that took and pulled out. And I didn't have to swear it all off. I didn't have to say, I'll never have a drink again. I didn't have to say, I quit drinking. I didn't have to say any of that. It was just peace. It was like, that's it. And, 7 years, it's like, wow. I'm like, this is what it's like. And so, and you're not condemning others for drinking around you. If someone wants to have a glass, you're not like you used to be like, oh boy, I can be around it. It doesn't bother me at all. I'll have it in my refrigerators if I'm having my guests over or something. And they want, well, yeah, I don't care. Does that make sense? That's when, like, guys like Welch and meeting you guys, because you really, in the material that you've sent me, really were coming at it from that angle, is that this takes God. You have, that's the only way you get cured. You might go years on methodology and discipline, and I recommend that. That's great. I think Bill Wilson would say, at least you're not drinking. But it's not this. Does that make sense? Or maybe talk about that, so or at least confirm some of
Sure.
what I am.
I definitely have like when I look at this topic, I have two major influences. I have my decade plus of being involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, eating disorders anonymous. I've had experience in a lot of, you got an anonymous, you know what I mean? I've read the literature, been there, done that, got the shirt, right? I have that influence. And then I have this love for theology, and I have this love for Reformed theology. So I see where the two can kind of battle each other sometimes. AA will say, you can never leave. You're never healed of this. You're going to be.
What's an alcoholic? Always an alcoholic. I'm like,
yeah. And I have a lot of reverence and I have a lot of respect for that right there. And I want to live in that total abstinence that has influenced my life so much. Like I said earlier, I can never get away from it. But I also have this, well, God is sovereign. God is the Lord of your life. God's grace is irresistible. God changes us. In Christ, we have a new nature. We're a new creation. So I look back on passages like, we were talking about Romans 14, but let's back up to Romans 13. And when Paul's charging us, cast off the deeds of darkness and basically put on the cloak, or put on the clothes of light. So walk in this new nature. And then walking in this new nature, drunkenness is opposed to you walking in this new nature right here. So that's kind of how I really do understand recovery these days. I'm walking in the freedom that God has given me. I'm walking in sanctification. I'm walking in the grace of God. And one of the ways that I do that is I use the 12 steps. I use them as a tool. The 12 steps it's not a dogma. To me, it's not, it can get placed on this weird level. And I don't want to put it on that weird level, because I know where my recovery comes from. But at the same time, I'm like, I have no problem grabbing hold of the tool. Hey, let's do a 4-step. Hey, let's go to an AA meeting. I have no problem using that stuff, because at the end of the day, I know where my recovery comes from. So I do kind of tend to emphasize the grace of God and the delivering power of God when it comes to me approaching this topic, for sure. So I don't know, does that kind of answer what you were saying? Or
in the book I wrote, God as Bill Wilson Understood Him, you see where he's using that language. This is an old debate. You've been in it long enough with the old school AAers and the new school AA, and they'll say ex drunk. I'm an ex drunk,
right?
Ex alcoholic, and then they scribbled out that language and said recovery.
Well, especially in the process, we have been cured of our alcoholism. That's in the book.
That's what they're doing. Because the old guys were saying, no, when you're delivered and set free, you're set free. And I think that's where the early group was coming. They were coming at. That's where they were. That God truly did set you free, and that's it. He removes the desire. He takes it away, and then Bill has that just wonderful place where it's as if I have never been before. and had never had any, you're at this place of peace and tranquility and all of that, because that's from the Spirit. And I think that's Bill coming from that Christian angle, that
Yeah.
deep influence from Shoemaker and others that was speaking into his life. Because Shoemaker was a wonderful, good. His books and stuff were really good.
Sure.
Written before he met Bill. So if you go back to a lot of Shoemaker's earlier stuff, it's like, yeah, that's good stuff. And Shoemaker has this wonderful sermon that I gave. I think it was at one of the biggest conferences back in the 40s or something. What the church could learn
Yeah, I
from
can learn from AA. Yeah.
And I recommend every pastor read that, because here's where AA got it. Here's their big contribution: is face-to-face fellowship, face-to-face building relationships of speaking into each other's lives, and accountability and responsibility, following up, staying involved, constant meetings, not just Sunday, but constant fellowship, because that's what. And I thought, bang, you got it. That's it. That's what the church needs right there.
Yeah.
And boy, if sin is as powerful as it is, and it is, oh, what wretched man that I am. If sin can take something that is good and make you think that you're doing something good when actually you're doing evil, that's how good sin is at what it does. In the case I'm involved in now, if sin could make "do not eat of this tree" turn that into, "oh, you're allowed to eat from this tree," that's how good it is. Then I need constant fellowship with other brothers and sisters in Christ to continue to, that's the meeting of church. It's not a social meeting. The reason we go to church is because there's spiritual power there of the Spirit that's bringing us together, that is and that's empowering me. And in our culture, we've gotten away with just meeting on Sundays, and we've become non-essential. In case you haven't noticed, we're non-essential because it's just a social meeting, and you can just meet online. You can watch a sermon on YouTube and read a book and just meet online. What's the big deal? Why do you got to go to church all the time? What do you got to do all the time? Well, if you're coming at it from an angle of it's just a social group meeting kind of thing, then yeah, why do you have to? But if you come at it that this is where power is delivered from the Holy Spirit, this is where power is, and accountability and responsibility, and I'm struggling here. Instead of answering, "Hey Bob, how's it going?" "Oh, great, everything's great," I can say, "I'm struggling. I'm having some problems," and I don't get rejected. I get accepted. Man, if the church could get that, that's, we're on a enterprise right now with, in the grace of God, providence of God. I hope, but the vision there is that's what we're wanting to do as a fellowship, and starting a fellowship here in Newcastle. But it's that kind of camaraderie and fellowship. Now, I guess that some people in church don't like that. They like sitting back behind a head and looking at the back of someone's head and then watching the entertainment on stage. That's all culture to me. That's not church. That's I don't know what that is. It's entertainment in Las Vegas, but I don't know if it's what Paul's talking about. Paul's talking about bearing one another's burdens. And see, I think Bill Wilson got that, and I think that's what he was doing. I think that's why they were successful in what they were doing, because it had that. And you're either going to drive people away, or you're going to bring them even closer to what it is that they're wanting to accomplish. And you guys can speak to that as well. But boy, we could learn a lot from that. But we just don't do it. Our churches are very cold and sterile and entertaining, and do the 3 songs, do the things. Let's have the great sermon. All right, it's out of here. The Colts are playing. I got to get out of here. And it's just too bad. I'd like church to go on for like 3 hours. But that's me. That makes sense?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you there. That it does seem that the biggest strength of of like AA groups or, whatever it is. Maybe you're not a 12 stepper. Maybe you're one of these other, movements, because that's Reform and Recovery too. Try to give voice to those other things too. Cause like I said, the 12 steps, it's a tool. I think God's given us a lot of tools, to recover. But I would say the strength of AA, the 12-step circles, is that fellowship. And I would say that it's the empathy of one alcoholic working with another alcoholic, the addict working with another, another
Understand each other.
Yeah. And that, to me, that's a very biblical concept. We are one, what is it? One anothering each other. We are, we're getting real, we're getting up
Dirty
and personal and all that kind of
getting
stuff.
dirty. You're getting in the muck with people. You're getting in the dirt with them.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me because, I won't mention any, wanting to start fellowships or wanting to start groups with people. And so you're going to bring in, if you do it at the church basement or whatever, you're going to bring in elements of people from the outside.
Oh yeah.
Those people. And this is the backlash I get from, because what we're starting, we're definitely going to have substance abuse thing going on because, hey, those are my people. So, but here's what I get told. Well, you got to lock everything up because they'll steal stuff. Well, we don't want those kinds of people around because they tend to take advantage or they'll use, they're not really here. They're just here for the free dinner. Well, those, they're not reformed.
Yeah.
Just all this pushback that you're getting from people that go to church.
Yeah.
That drives me crazy because I'm like, but have you read Matthew 25? Because I think that's what we're supposed to do. We're not to have a thing where it's gathered around, the guy that's going to give the sermon on Sunday, and the whole thing is just built around that.
Yeah.
If that's what it is, I can get that on YouTube. I can watch the greatest scholars in the world on YouTube, and thank you very much. But I can get that, in other words, anywhere. Fellowship, on the other hand, I can't get that from YouTube. I can't get that on, that one anothering. I can only get that in a local setting. And now another person who's a pastor's wife that I talked to, telling her what I'm wanting to do. And she's been doing it for years. Open arms ministry that they have here, and they, people come out of jail and then they go plug right into this church, and then they try to get them back on their feet again, which is fantastic. And I said, some people in the church are saying that they're going to steal stuff, and that we want to watch out for this element if we bring and start having these kind of meetings at the church. And she looked at me, and I knew she had it. And you guys probably like this. I knew she had it because she said, and so what if they do? I'm like, you got it. And she goes, it's God's church. It's God's plates. It's his utility. So what if they do take stuff? What businesses? And I'm like, you're wonderful. You get it. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Can I touch on a couple of things there?
Please.
Yeah. So I wanted to say, so you were talking about sin and how deceptive sin is. I'll tell you that from a little bit of the reading that I've done, I would say that, sin is actually fulfilling a God-given desire in an illegitimate way. So it's basically, taking that and it's been perverted in such a way. So,
That's pretty good.
yeah. So you have the the gift of grapevines and stuff like that. And yeah, hey, we can have a little bit of wine or whatever, but to fulfill a God-given desire in an illegitimate way would take that to the level of gluttony, drunkenness, which becomes drunkenness, right? So I'm being
gonna have to write that down.
Yeah. Well, I got it out of this book.
God gives a desire.
God, yeah, and so even anything that's, because God sets up these certain types of boundaries for us to protect us, but we overstep those boundaries, So I would say, yeah. And this is the thing is that, my heart is deceptive and deceitful above all things and is desperately wicked. I think that's what you were saying with, having accountability placed in your life so that, because my feelings that they're deceptive, my brother and sister or my brother in Christ, he's going to be able to see something that's going on in me that I'm probably masking with my own emotions, and that's what's so good about accountability, because you have, brothers in Christ that can sit there and say, hey, what's going on with you? You seem a little off today, or if you actually are confessing something to them, they can help you pull more depth out of what's actually taking place. So that's why I like the biblical counseling approach, where you're doing discipleship. You're one-on-one with a brother. You don't, we're all called to be a type of biblical counsel. We're counseling one another, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so like when we're sitting there and we're counseling each other, we're genuine, love for that other person. We're going to ask questions and try to pull that out. And that's what our church family does at COF. And that's what Rory does with me, he asks a lot of questions, because Rory is actually my sponsor, my mentor right now, and we're working through a few things. So I would say that I'm just grateful, I've never met Rory in person, but I know this guy, I know this guy, and he's a good brother in Christ, and it's just awesome to be able to have that accountability. So my suggestion to anyone that might be watching, get with any type of, whether it be AA, Live in Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Way to Freedom, whatever type of recovery program, and get in there, because, we have that HOW acronym that we work by: honesty, open-minded, and willingness. And so if I'm not being honest, you're not going to be open-minded. We got to be honest where we're at. Open-minded, be open-minded about what, someone that's a little bit further along, because, that the majority of the time, I would say that people get turned off by the recovery atmosphere because they might, through their own feelings of insecurities, they think that someone is talking down to them. But I'll tell you this, in the recovery community, that's not how it's going. They're talking to you because they've been where you've been. I promise you that they want you to succeed. Okay. And then be willing to put these things into practice. Because if we just sit at honesty and open-minded, but we don't put any action behind it, we're probably going to be just like, stagnant water. We're going to be spinning our wheels, right? We're not going to be getting anywhere. So just be open-minded, be honest, open-minded, and willing about that. And that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Oh, that's, boy. And I know it's 2:00. See, I could do that. See that, this is my problem. I've got to, my wife keeps telling me, I have the greatest wife in the world, by the way. So.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah.
But you got structure. See, I could do this all day long. You just read, because you get enthused. There's life in the word. There's life that comes when people speak life. And you just fall in love with God all over again. Your first love. And boy, to get around other folks. There's just nothing like it. And there's nothing like seeing somebody really starting to get it and come along. And I think sometimes we hide behind doctrine. Sure. Those of us that don't have the issues with addiction or whatever, but we have our other. See, we don't think, if we don't, we got to stop saying that we're not like other people. If you don't have addiction struggles and this, that, yeah, but you've got other sins going on. See, sin does its own thing. You could have issues of pride or whatever, and we can hide behind doctrine. And we use doctrine because if you have a different doctrine than I do, then I'm not going to talk with you. I'm going to get you out of my life. Well, I must have hit a nerve there, because anything to me that refuses confrontation. If one person's wanting that confrontation and the other one's not, this person that wants the confrontation is hitting the nerve on somebody else that doesn't. You're wanting to avoid it. I've learned that I learn more through confrontation than anything else. That's why I mentioned my wife, because she puts it right, and I'm like, that's that honesty. Just stop going to church and people asking you how you are, and you're saying, I'm great. Number one, you're lying.
There you go.
Because you just got in a fight with your wife and you had to do everything you could to get your kids out of bed so that they could go to church, which they don't want to do. And just, be on, but we're not. And I'm using that hypothetical, but I know people whose families, they don't want to go, their kids don't want to go to church. They want to stay home and play. It's Sunday. They want to play video games. They don't want to go to church. And wife's fighting, and you're running a little late, and you're going to go, and then you go to church. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm great. Everything's great.
Yeah.
That's not boy, it would be shocking if someone said, you know what, I'm not doing very well at all. We woke up a little late, and then my kids don't want to be here, and I'm just having a real problem, and I need to sit down. We need to talk. See, that to me is more positive but somehow we've learned to say I'm doing great, which is the worst thing that you could do. That's not helping anything. But if you're just honest, yeah, it might not make you look good at the moment, but the benefit that comes with that, if someone else is in your life that would say, you know what, I hear you, I understand that. In fact, my kids didn't want to come to church today. And right there, you just started a conversation. And, AA they do that. And I've seen it. But you don't see it a whole lot in the church. And that's the problem. I don't want to keep rigging on the church. I love the church. I love everything about it.
No doubt.
I like the pews. I like the smells. I like the ladies with their bun hair. I like all of it. Everything about church. But does that make sense? I know we're running long on time, but those are the things about church that have always bothered me. It's just there's just no honesty.
Sure.
Just isn't any real honesty there.
Yeah. I'm thinking about for people who've read familiar with the AA Big Book, Dr. Bob's Nightmare. And Dr. Bob kind of recounts his story of first meeting Bill Wilson. And Dr. Bob says something there. He's like, you got to understand, I've been reading a lot about alcoholism. I'd read everything I could. I'd talked to everybody that I could. But here, when he's talking to Bill Wilson, he's like, Wilson doesn't necessarily say anything profound, but he looks across the table and it's like, this is a man who's been through what I've been through. This is a man who understands me at a level that these other guys have never been able to reach me. I've heard it all, you know what I mean? Like, read the book, but this man understands me, and we're able to connect on this, this honest level there. And I think back on, and we can close after this, but one of my mentors, he started a church over in Santa Cruz that grew into a drug and alcohol treatment center that grew into 50 beds or something like that. And this is a church that started in the 70s in a van, in a bus. They were like this movement. They got kicked out of the church because they started wanting to work with homeless people and drug addicts. And anyway, so the Lord bless
those people. We don't want to work with those people.
Yeah, but he always did. Not a drug addict, never had problems. His kids never had problems. But the thing that he understood, he was very honest and open about pain. He understood pain. Therefore, he can make that connection with anybody in the world. So I don't want to do what happens in recovery, normies and alcoholics. Like, there's only two kinds of people in the world. I don't want to do that. I do want to give voice to the fact that, there is a connection that two drug addicts can have, but there's also a connection that anybody that's honest about pain and honest about life's experiences, you can connect with anybody else also. And that's what I always go back to. I always go back to that magical word, empathy. To me, that's what this comes down to. Placing yourself in that person's shoes, knowing them enough to be authentic with that person.
It's, so two drunks talking to one another, and that was Bob and Bill.
Yep.
In that church, it should be two sinners talking to one another.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Because I'm a sinner, and I emphasize I am a sinner saved by grace. I know that there's some in the church that say, "Oh, you're not a sinner." No,
Yeah.
I'm a sinner. I live in this flesh, in this body of death. I am a sinner. Take my word for it. Ask my wife.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, unless there's something you wanted to add on that, we could go ahead and start, wrapping it up. We've been on for
no,
about,
I'm good.
yeah.
And I appreciate it. Maybe we can do this again or something on a.
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
broke the ice here.
Yeah,
It has been a pleasure. It really has. This has been very
Guys are great.
encouraging listening to you guys and being able to be a part of something like this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And I realize that there's gonna come, people saying, Sam, you got your degrees and you studied, you're a scholar and all this. And, there's a part of me that, I don't want to share this side of my life. But then I think the Spirit is saying, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
This is my life. This is my story. It's where, it's the, if it doesn't make me look good, then it's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah.
If it's going to be embarrassing or if it doesn't make me look good or something, then it's probably the best thing in the world to actually put out there and to do. Again, we hide behind these facades and create these images. Everything's going great, which right now I think everything's going pretty good in my life. But again, there's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
But with God, everything is always good, right? I love Job. Though he slay me, I will serve him. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yeah. So before we sign off, do you want to, where can people find your books? I know you got blogs and all that. Where can they find them?
Well, vigil.blog, vigil.blog. And then the book that blue book that you guys sent you, that's actually done pretty good. A lot of recovery groups have written me back and really liked what I was writing there, probably because I was just one of them. So I was writing it from that angle. I understood what AA is and recommend it. I don't have any issues with AA. You can find one, go to the and that's on Amazon. I guess you can get it. I'm not really good at promoting myself.
Yeah.
This is another area my wife says I need to get. I've had a lot of people tell me that you need to learn how to promote. I said, I don't know how to do that. But anyway, you can get that on Amazon.com, I think. God, as Bill Wilson understood him. And vigil.blog is a place also where that and some other books and stuff can be done. So I appreciate everything you guys do. And I do read your stuff on Facebook. Sometimes it's a word in the right season, right moments. Just, I needed to hear that.
Sure.
So Lord continue to bless you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take it.
Yes,
Sean, you
sir.
want to plug the YouTube or anything before we go?
Oh, what do you mean? Like,
Your YouTube channel, your Facebook page? Come on, man.
Yeah.
yeah.
The stuff that you do.
Yeah, the stuff
Yeah,
you
yeah.
do, bro.
Yeah, man. Check me out. In Christ Recovery and Apologetics on YouTube, on Facebook. It's the same. And I have an Anchor podcast. It's called Recovery in Christ, but I'm fixing to change it to the rest. I'm fixing to change it to In Christ Recovery and Apologetics, just because it's easy to find. Let me show y'all guys this. My wife made me some, like when I'm out evangelizing and stuff, passing out tracts and talking to people, trying to share the gospel. My wife made this business card. She's awesome. And on the back, it's got, yeah, it's pretty nice, man.
That's inspiring.
Yeah, it
I've been
really is.
wanting to do something like, see, my son has even been saying, he's a college grad, Dad, you need a business card or something. Like, but that's inspiring. That's
Yeah. Hey,
I thought it was a Jack Chick track at first. You ever seen those Jack Chick tracks, the old tracks?
yeah.
I'm aging myself.
Look, I got More Than a Carpenter right here, and I think I got a John Piper 10 Reasons for Jesus. So yeah, man, I love going out and just talking to people, man, talking to people and just picking their brains, trying to see, some of their thought processes. I think that's from basically all the precept that I sit there, the philosophy, the epistemology and stuff that I those shows and audiobooks that I listen to. So
And that would be a great book, actually, is teaching us, how to go out and start talking to people and evangelize. You don't see a lot of the material. Just how do I just go out in the street and start talking to people?
Yeah,
I've tried my hand at all of that kind of stuff. Some people have a real knack for it. It's just they can talk to a head of lettuce, and the head of lettuce repents. It's amazing. And then there's others I've tried it, and I've talked to them, and I end up in this talking about Plato or something in a big giant argument about that. I'm like, this is not going. And then other guys are like, have you ever heard Jesus? Yes, I need you. And it's like, well, you got the gift.
wow. Greg Koukl,
That's another subject.
Greg Koukl in his books Tactics, he talks about, two types of evangelists. Well, one is basically, the sower, and then the other one is the reaper, right? And so or the gardener, and then the reaper. And so basically, Kukul said, I'm going to teach you how to garden. And so all you do is you're going out there and you're just having conversations with people, not so much just sharing the gospel, but picking their brains and challenging their worldviews. So
you send me that link
for Tactics.
Yeah, send me that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
yes, sir.
He must have been playing off First Corinthians there, right? With Paul planted, Apollos planted, I watered, or watered, however it goes there. Probably playing off that, but that's pretty cool, man. That is a good book, Tactics, because there's a lot of books that talk about the philosophy of apologetics and the transcendental arguments and the cosmological arguments, but how do I actually do this? How do I actually talk to another person about this stuff, and not just argue apologetic methods with other Christians and all that?
I've been there, done that.
But you could definitely check out. Sean's a busy guy. We do a lot of group discussions here, and then he's got his stuff, and then search Reformed and Recovered. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, now on transferring stuff over to Spotify, Anchor, trying to make this stuff available on all platforms to reach as many people as we can. I've written a couple tracks and booklets. You guys can find those on Amazon.com. Just search Rory Fry, and I think I have maybe 10 or 12 that I've put out at this point. Different recovery topics, the 10 Commandments, a lot of different things. Want to be a service to our fellows and help as many people as we possibly can. So feel free to reach out to anyone that you see on this live stream right now. Reach out to us, message us, and we'd love to talk to you about Jesus, and love to talk to you about recovery from addiction.
Everyone needs to get your booklet on advancing the kingdom and the recovery. I love that book, man. That was one of the first books I read of yours, and I was like, man, you gotta be kidding me. This is amazing. I was like, dude, this is straight up post mill.
Stage reconstructionist back then. So yeah.
There's a need for it. I mean, there's just not a lot of my section in the library over here, but there's just not a lot of I've got some various works, Ed Welch, of course, but there's just not a lot of maybe it's because of the mentality. Church people that go to church don't really struggle with addictions, because it's, maybe few in between the cracks, there might be some things here and there. So they really just don't understand
Yeah.
what is now recognized as a it's a problem.
Sure.
And there is this phenomenon. It's not just quit. Stop sinning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a theologian wrestling with why I couldn't control this. That was the most frustrating thing in the world, because you have this knowledge, right? You can't implement it. And the tools. You memorize the 12. You've read the big book 1,000 times. I can recite a history of it, where it came from, the roots, and all this bunch of other stuff. And I still can't quit drinking.
Yep.
Boy, that's
Yep.
there's something there, and the church, I think, must have just say, well, if you're saved and regenerated, then regenerated people just don't do those things. Boy, there's a real bad theology
Yeah.
there that I'm really trying to get at the root at, and this is bad stuff. Regeneration is not what you think it is. It doesn't mean everything's great now.
Yeah.
In fact, it might mean the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can get off here now, but Matt Chandler had a book called Recovery and Redemption, and I've talked about it on here before. And it's sometimes people think it's a recovery book because of the title, but he talks about how Christians, we're always looking for that silver bullet that's going to cause our problems, and it's just it don't exist, man.
Well, I was thinking the other day, I was praying, 70 times 7. So how many times should I forgive?
Yeah.
70. So 70 times 7. I flipped that around, and I thought, well, what about the guy that's coming to you the 489th, 490th time? We always think about, I am to forgive 70 times 7. And then it just hit me the other day. It was like, but what about the guy that's coming to me for the 490th time?
Yeah. Jeez.
Well, that's the guy that he knows that by that time that he's come to you, the 532nd time or whatever, there's a breaking, because I have to shame myself to come to you again and say, brother, Sean, can you forgive me? I did it again. Every time I do that to you and come to you, and this is why you're to forgive me, is you're letting me do that, but you're letting the Holy Spirit break me through a shame of having to come to you again. I'm being broke. But when we say, man, you've come to me 12 times now, brother, I'm sorry. I've given you 12 times, I'm done. Then we shut off that opportunity where but there's a great amount of love to have to forgive someone 70 times 7. And we think about that, but the other flip side is the guy that's coming at you that many times. What about that guy?
I know.
Because I hate going to people and saying, oh, I'm wrong.
I did it again.
You're right. I'm wrong. And if I had to do that a lot on this issue, I've had, but I think it breaks it does break you down. It breaks down that. Man, I did it again, and I'm gonna hear my lecture. I'm gonna hear this lecture again.
Yeah.
Should have. But if you're if that's the relationship, you're forgiving, and he keeps coming to be forgiven. If that's the relationship that's going on, that's where God's working. That's how he works. That's how he does it. Do you have to be strong enough to forgive somebody that many times?
Gosh, that's
especially you talk about mentorship and sponsorship and stuff. And I don't know, I know that AA has this very strong. Well, I know at times there's a lot of topics. Well, I mean, AA has this, okay, you got to go back, you've had a year's sobriety, so you got to go back and get your white chip, start all over again.
Yeah.
That approach is being actually challenged of saying, hey, you went a year without drinking.
Yeah.
You used to drink every single day. And
Yes.
you went a year. That's fantastic.
Yep.
You don't have to start again. You've already started.
Yeah.
You're already. I like that approach.
Yeah.
I think Ed Wells and others approach it that way.
That's kind of, that's how.
That sounds like you,
felt.
Rory. That's something you would say.
I
Right there, bro.
Man, you went
Look,
2 months.
Hey, we're getting off, we're getting into a whole other subject here, but when I work with somebody, I'm trying, obviously be sane and sober about this stuff. But the drug and alcohol, the drug addict who relapse has enough guilt and shame in their life. I don't need to be piling more guilt and shame on them. We obviously confront them where they're at and say, yeah, relapse is not ideal, but hey, let's not forget the fact that we just had 90 days of sobriety. You were not damaging yourself. You were not humiliating yourself for 90 days. Let's celebrate that, but let's move ahead. Let's Apostle Paul, I forget what's behind me. I strain ahead. Let's move forward. Yeah, but let's celebrate the fact that you have some time under your belt as we move forward from here. I'm so glad you brought that up. Because the
one
last
thing
thing
I
I
could
do is
change.
just pile up the guilt, pile up the shame. Yeah, man, you blew it, bro. Start over.
Start all over.
Yeah. No, you learned something in that time. Apply that. That shows you that you have something to learn too. Sure, but you have a foundation.
That's why you talk. Let's talk about what happened. Let's retrace what happened.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, all right, guys. I gotta go.
Yeah. All
I
right.
got another
everybody.
thing I gotta go to.
Yeah, we'll see you guys around. Hit us up, Facebook, YouTube.
You have this?
Oh, that's the original, right?
Yeah.
I don't have
This
that.
thing's awesome.
I've seen it before.
Oh, I'd recommend getting it. It's good. It shows all the little notes and scribbles and. It's good
Yeah, well,
stuff.
that's good for people. And they say, well, they've never changed the first 164. It's like they definitely have.
Yeah, they have.
But anyways, all right, guys. Hey, we're gonna go ahead and end the live stream. Thanks for anybody who tuned in and joined us today. And we'll see you guys around on cyberspace. Again, reach out to us, and if you're struggling with drugs, alcohol, any compulsive behavior, reach out to us. We'd love to help you and point you to somebody else if you need something else. So we love you guys, and God bless.
God bless.
God bless you.
All right.
All right. So thank you.
No, thank you.